Hello viewers, and thank you so much once again for joining me, Costa, on the Big Talk. Today we are bringing you another very special episode where we want to discuss or to talk about the United States of America conflict with Iran. I'm joined on the program by Gibson Yikadzino, who is a journalist and a political analyst. Gibson, I want to give you an opportunity to meet our viewers.
Thank you so much. How are you, viewers? Glad to be here.
And let's jump into it. Give us an overall assessment, overall view of the conflict between the United States and Iran.
Thank you. I think I will try to make it short. This is one of the biggest wars that we've seen in our lifetime because it has existed since the triumph of the Islamic Republic of Iran in 1979. So when the Islamic Republic took power in 1979, after the Shah or the king of Iran was deposed, fled the country to the United States. In fact, he was a puppet regime of the United States. He was deposed in 1979. From there, we see that the United States, it started imposing sanctions against the new administration that was in Iran. Then secondly, in 1980, we understand that Iraq, through Saddam Hussein, attempted to capture Iran. So Iraq invaded that the war in 1980 to 1988, of which the United States and Israel, they also supported Iraq because to them, the ideological orientation of the new administration that was in Tehran from 1979, it was considered a hindrance to their interests. Which are these interests? The interests about resources, geopolitical interests, and the interests about dominance, considering that in the United States or in the West, the existence of Israel is quite important in that region because it is an ally which was created in 1948 to extend the influence of the United States. So in Iran, when they see Israel, they consider it as a satellite state of the United States, which is the 51st state of the United States. So when you look at it from 1979 up to now, we have seen a lot of systems that have been used to fight Iran. Besides this one, which we are now seeing and feeling as one of the aspects, traditionally we have seen economic warfare as part and parcel of what has been happening from 1979.
Fast forward to end of February until now. What is your appreciation of this conflict?
My appreciation of the conflict is that this has been necessitated by the provocation by the United States and Israel. Firstly, the provocation comes as a violation of the United Nations Charter, Article 2.4 and Article 2.7, which speaks about the right to determination of independent states. And for a long time, what we saw on February 28, it was not the beginning. It was actually a continuation of what has been happening since 1979. Only that this time, it has taken a military dimension.
When you say provocative, you mean it wasn't justified? And why?
Under international law, it is not justified. You cannot attack a particular country over anything else because each country has a right to sovereignty. That's why now...
What reasons were put forward by the states and Israel when they...
Traditionally, they have always used these same reasons, like what they did in Iraq in 2003, that Saddam Hussein, he has weapons of mass destruction. In 2011 in Libya, that Libya wants to develop a nuclear weapon. And now we are seeing it in Iran, or before Iran, we saw it in Venezuela, that President Maduro, He was a narco-terrorist. He was leading the smuggling of drugs
drug
into,
cartel.
yeah.
But with Iran, so don't you see that the reasons are justified from the states and Israel?
I don't see justification at the moment, because what they are saying is Iran should stop the issues to do with nuclear enrichment. They are saying Iran is about to have a nuclear weapon, of which this has been the position by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu since 1996. He used to say Iran is only left with 1 week, Iran is left with 5 days, Iran is left with 3 days. But in 2003, the Ayatollah, the one who was martyred on February 28, he had said we need to stop that idea.
But what gives you confidence that Iran even stopped?
Because the International Energy Atomic Agency, it has been on point to say on all nuclear reactors, on all nuclear facilities, Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon. And also the US National Director of Intelligence Security, I think it's Tulsi Gabbard, last year in March, she said Iran is not developing a nuclear weapon. Obama, former president, said that. Joe Biden, he also said that. Even his vice president back then, Kamala Harris, she also said that, such that at one point, American media has been asking them, is it wise to go to war with Iran? And then they were all saying it is not wise. But unfortunately, this war has been planned for a long time, especially when we are looking at Israel and its desire to remain a dominant force in that region.
And given all these circumstances, how should the international community react to this conflict?
I think the international community has reacted. Firstly, the United Nations, through Secretary General Antonio Guterres, it has said this one has to stop. And funny enough, I'll tell you one thing, Costa. When a country like Switzerland, which is known as a neutral country, condemns Israel and the United States for violating international law, that tells us a lot about what has happened on February 28. Almost all countries, they are condemning what's happening. But the challenge that is happening is they are not condemning, now the war is going on, they are not condemning this aggression and provocation by the United States. They are now reversing the tide and acting as if Iran is the aggressor, but Iran is not an aggressor at the moment. It is actually using Article 51 of the United Nations, the right to self-defense, because its military doctrine traditionally, it is based on the right to self-defense.
What about if you look at the region in Zimbabwe in particular? Have you read their positions vis-a-vis this conflict?
Yeah, I think last Friday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs went and signed the condolence book at the Embassy of Iran. But before I venture into that, I also want to highlight that Zimbabwe, it believes in multilateralism. So Zimbabwe is a member of the United Nations. Zimbabwe is also a member of the African Union, and it also has bilateral relations with Iran. So as much as I'm understanding this, the position that has been established by the United Nations, the position that has been established by the AU, it is also important to factor that in, because Zimbabwe believes and is member to those institutions. And when it comes to its bilateral relations with Iran, I think the statement has been clear to say there is need to ensure that dialogue takes a priority position because this war, if it continues, it will not only affect Africa, it will not only affect Latin America, it will affect the whole of the global world. So I think that is also a position I'm seeing from Zimbabwe.
And what are the implications on Zimbabwe, precisely, when we look at this conflict between Iran and the States?
Okay, it's a conflict by the U.S. and Israel against Iran, if I'm
Precisely.
if I'm to put it that way. But already yourself, you have already felt the implication, because now oil, fuel, the prices, they have gone up, not only in Zimbabwe, but the world over. And this means that at a time like this, importing foodstuffs, for instance, here in Zimbabwe, even producing our own, it will also become relatively expensive. So this will also affect, I think, even the GDP or growth outlook of Zimbabwe, because there are a lot of disruptions that are happening. So it's not something that we are only looking at Zimbabwe, but also even in that region. Remember, countries like Bahrain, the Gulf states, because Iran has closed the Strait of Hormuz, where almost 20% of oil passes through, it means these countries, when they were using the Strait of Hormuz to export their oil, they're also using the same strait to import fuel, to import foodstuffs, because they don't have food. They import the majority of their food. So
I want us
they are also
to
affected.
continue zooming on Zimbabwe and draw much on the implications. And from your assessment, would you say the current administration is prepared to respond to the effects of this conflict?
Okay, I think it would be unfair, for instance, if we only look at the responses that have been made by the current government when we are only focusing on this war. But we have had other instances, previous instances. For instance, we had Cyclone Idai here in Zimbabwe. We experienced that. The government, it moved swiftly to look at it. We also had COVID-19. That was the most challenging period Zimbabwe went through. But when you look at the figures back then, according to AU statistics, Zimbabwe was actually among the top 5 countries that were responding to the COVID pandemic with speed and with organization. So when it comes to this war, as far as I'm looking at it, challenges might be there, because wars, they are fluid in nature. They take different courses. But as of now, I think the intention has been registered by the government that there's been a fuel subsidy that has been put into the sector. So that is part and parcel of the first steps that the government is doing. When it comes to issues to do with food prices, we haven't seen much changes at the moment. So, but I'm sure that the government, it will do its best to respond to this challenge.
But the subsidy thing, where does it take effect? Where does it start to take effect? Because we've already seen fuel. It's gone up, and there is no subsidy at the moment for the ordinary citizens at the moment.
Yeah, like I'm saying, wars, they are fluid. Things change. And pardon me, I'm not trying to speak on behalf of the government. I'm not an official of the government.
Yeah, I'm simply want to understand your observations and your assessment, and whether you are confident enough that this administration is prepared enough to respond to this.
Yeah, I think its preparedness, it will be seen with what it will do because this is just 7 days. The war is just 7, in fact, 9 days old. So also the adjustments, they also need to be done by looking at how best the government can respond depending with the situation, how it is panning out. But I'm sure there is no country that, you know, when you look at it first, we have got citizens who are in that region. The government, it highlighted that they should register, just like what any other government is doing. They're keeping an eye on the situation. If you need help, definitely they will avail the help, like what they did again last year during the 12-day war between Israel and the United States. They moved some of the citizens They took them to Azerbaijan. The same it has happened now. So I think...
One more last thing on Zimbabwe. We want to go back to Iran. There was a communication from the government. I think it was the Information Minister, Mr. Sodashem, who said we've got a fuel that could last us 3+ months right now in our reserves. So why is it gone up suddenly?
That's why I'm saying when things change, when things change, there are a lot of supply chains that are disrupted. The idea that we've got 3 months fuel does not mean the price cannot go up. Japan at the moment, South Korea, it has said it has a 9 month supply of fuel, but their fuel has also gone up. So it is a global trend because the main trigger that is the trigger that has initiated this is being felt everywhere. So the idea that we have supplies for the next 3 months does not necessarily mean that the prices cannot be adjusted.
Let's go back to Iran. There were concerns that Iran was, earlier on you indicated that they pledged, they said, no, we are stopping the nuclear project, we are no longer doing it, we have stopped. But there were concerns that Iran was not fully complying with the International Atomic Energy Agency, sanctions in particular, to say you need to stop. This was coming from this agency, the concerns of Iran not complying.
You see, I think the International Atomic Energy Agency, they have been clear about Iran's nuclear program, and also the foreign minister of Oman, for instance, when he was negotiating, when he was mediating the negotiations between the United States and Iran, it was clear that there is no intention whatsoever. Iran is only saying we are using our nuclear for civilian purposes. But the United States and Israel, they are saying your enrichment capacity should be lower, to which Iran actually said, we are willing to have more negotiations about this thing, but some of the conditions you are giving, they are not making sense. So I think a lot of propaganda has been put to try and make Iran a pariah state, so that the intention of the Western establishment and its plan towards launching what they are calling preemptive strikes in Iran are fulfilled. But this has been going on, Costa. This has been going on.
Would you dispute the definition or the description of Iran as a pariah state when you've got those records of human rights, particularly on women and children, and so atrocious experiences that the Iranians, some of them have suffered at the hands of the Iran leadership?
Can you tell me this? Can you tell me this? Which country in Western Asia has the highest number of women engineers?
No, well, my question is,
I hear your question.
The pariah status? Yeah.
I hear your question. I'm trying to highlight the idea that for a long time, people have been socially engineered to think that there are a lot of abuses that are happening in Iran concerning women, but we are also turning a blind eye to abuses, for instance, in the United States and other regions like the UK, for instance. I'm just giving you as an example. Not that if it's happening, it should be justified because it's also happening elsewhere. I'm just saying there have been murders of American citizens by the ICE when the immigration police. Nothing has been said about it.
At the same scale with what Iranians are experiencing?
I'm not too sure about what you mean by the same scale, because the whole idea about targeting Iran is to make sure that how it is perceived with an ordinary person, like you rightfully put it, you said it's atrocious. But that's not it. Look, Iran has 92 million people. If people are being killed every day, I don't know who will be left as a citizen to be governed by the leadership in Iran. So we are looking at these narratives, about abuse of women, and especially when it is coming from the West, it becomes more of a challenge because when was the West more concerned about the rights of Muslim people? Maybe if I can put that to you.
I'm happy that I'm having a discussion with you.
Of
and
course.
I know you're knowledgeable about international affairs.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that you would not want to, if I can say, posturing, because you know that the levels of human rights abuses in Iran, particularly women, it has been all over.
That's my challenge. That's my challenge because
it does not need.
Before the 1979
they don't become
revolution,
abuses because the West is saying so.
I hear what you're saying. Let me put it this clearly. In what I read, Iran has a lot of challenges. It has a lot of challenges, just like another country. But to look at the abuse of women as something which is a priority which the government in Iran does to satisfy how it governs, I think that's wrong. Because what we can actually see is how the Islamic Revolution since 1979 has been able to liberate women. If I tell you that Iran right now, 99% women literacy, 35% of engineers in Iran, they are women. The highest number of students doing engineering and other STEM subjects at Iranian universities, they are women. So I'm not too sure how such form of empowerment can be reversed to be projected as a form of atrocious abuse. I understand in 2021, 2022, there was there were protests in Iran for following the death of a certain lady. I think her name was Amina, if I'm not mistaken. But the matter, the Ayatollah Khamenei, he actually said something about it, to say if there are things which people want to discuss concerning women, let's discuss them. It is a society whose beliefs we are not used to. It is a society whose identities we are not used to. This is a country whose civilization has maintained its posture against some of the encroaching elements of Western civilization, especially that target women. They are preserving their culture.
We still look at Iran. How do you maybe respond to accusations that Iran has faced that it has been sponsoring militant groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yeah. With that attack on Israel and so on. How do you respond to such accusations?
Iran has been consistent in its position to supporting its allies. They consider these groups as allies in that region because they also look at the liberation of the Palestinians in that region. The Palestinians who have been living under the Israeli apartheid system for almost 78 years now. So Iran has also, just like any other country, the United States, it also has its allies in that region, which are the Gulf states, which it has used to launch some of the attacks on Iran. So it's more like a reciprocation through allies. I know most people, they call them proxies, but if they are proxies to Iran, they should also be proxies to the United States when you look at the Gulf countries.
From your reading, you're not exonerating Iran from sponsoring these groups, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think they do what they do as allies, just as much as the United States considers it's also allies, which maybe it also sponsors using the terminology which you are saying. So I'm saying, I do not, for instance, you had mentioned something to do with the October 7. I'm not someone who is I'm someone who is pro-peace, because at the end of the day, people who are affected, they are ordinary people. But in as much as the world is also looking at it from a point of view of regional power dynamics, I think it would be unwise for Iran to remain mute without any action when opponents are planning against it. So it's more like a counter-attack which is happening in asymmetrical warfare.
Maybe from your analysis, how should possibly China and Russia respond to this conflict, and what could be the implications at a global level?
That will be very bad, especially when they choose to deploy, because already this is a fragile region. Just yesterday, if not Saturday, the ambassador of Russia to the UK, he outlined that we are not neutral in this war. They have condemned what has happened. Even Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has issued a statement against the Gulf countries that you are trying to whitewash what has happened, the atrocities that Israel and the United States have done in attacking an elementary school which has killed 175 children, girls. Same girls which you were just asking me that in Iran there is atrocities against women, but the United States, it really attacked 175 girls. So I think the presence of China would be something, if it's military, which I don't think so, because remember, Iran links 3 continents in this world. That's the only country which links 3 continents. It links Europe, it links Africa, and Asia. So it is at the center, of which at this center, it is also a passage for China's road and Belt and Road Initiative. So I think when we try to look at it from a military point of view, it would be very difficult. It goes beyond becoming a regional war. It can become a global war, which I think everyone around at the moment, they are trying to work out on a solution, not to inflame this situation, because already since 2022 we have had an experience in Russia and Ukraine. So this again, it becomes one thing which will be difficult, and it will be difficult for everyone.
And share with us what you read from the United States, especially the Americans. How are they responding to this conflict?
Ordinary Americans, they are not supporting the war, and the biggest challenge is their voices is not heard in the mainstream, because one, the idea is the President of the United States, with all due respect, President Donald Trump, he did not get a formal position from Congress to make a declaration of war, and based on what the United States has experienced, for instance, in Afghanistan and Iraq, they lost a lot of lives. They left a lot of equipment. They spent a lot of money without meeting their objectives. For instance, when you look at Afghanistan, they were saying we want to replace the Taliban, and now it is the Taliban which is in power. So in the United States, not only in the United States, the global sentiment, it is that we cannot support this war, and Americans are saying this is not our war. It is Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. It is his war. Iran is not a threat to the United States. That's their point. But when you look at, for instance, how the United States was drawn into this war, it's because the Prime Minister Netanyahu, since January 20 last year, when President Trump came for the second time, he went to the US on 7 occasions, trying to convince the United States president that Iran is a threat to us. So on a general landscape, people, they are tired of war.
And given an opportunity to speak to President Trump, what would you say to him?
I think that
Let's assume that opportunity arises in this president itself.
if that happens, I think I would encourage him to maintain the campaign that he had when he was coming to, when during his campaigns he was campaigning for peace. He was saying we don't want war. So I think it would be an opportunity, given that it would be an opportunity to say, Mr. President, can you uphold your pledge for peace, not only regional peace, but also global peace, because we are also feeling the tremors here in Southern Africa.
And in your parting shots, what is likely to happen and what's the best way forward maybe to resolve this conflict?
What I'm seeing, honestly, is that the United States is going to face an embarrassment in that region. And secondly, I'm seeing the United States pulling out of that region, especially considering that Iran is going to continuously attack the military assets in the Gulf countries. So it is going to be something which might be embarrassing to the United States, but also Iran is going to be affected heavily because it cannot withstand the combined force of the United States and Israel. It is going to be affected badly. Already it is being dominated in the airspace and their bombing, and I think it is going to be something which is a setback for them. But also, if the United States wants to deploy in that region, it is also going to be bad, because remember, when they did that sometime in Vietnam, they lost 58,000 soldiers in Vietnam, 58,000 soldiers. So they are thinking not to, but they are also thinking they are going to. But Iran says we are ready. So I'm seeing quite a lot of things. Even the Gulf countries, they are going to be affected, because once people feel that their leaders, they launched this, their countries were used to launch a war against Iran, they might also react and try to challenge through protests their leadership. So I think it is multi-dimensional, because as you can see recently, it has also proven to be more like a faith-based military conflict, because in the United States we have seen some church leaders praying for President Trump, but also in Iran and the Western Asian region we have seen people calling for more like a religious war against what they are calling Western warmongers. So it's multi-dimensional. It is very, very complex, but from what I can just see, no one is going to win from this engagement.
In brief, how is it going to be resolved? How can it be potentially be resolved?
At the moment, the only potential is dialogue and mediation, because all wars, they will end at the negotiating table. I think they will negotiate not to deal with nuclear program, the nuclear program of Iran, but firstly to amicably resolve this confrontation. I think I will continuously emphasizing this point, that even though the Iranians, they have pledged that no more talks, no more diplomacy, one way or the other, these three parties, they will ultimately find a way to negotiate how to de-escalate this situation, because if it continues, the trajectory it will take will be dangerous for everyone.
Thank you very much, Gibbs, for talking to us. Viewers, you heard it. This is the United States of America and Israel versus Iran. The conflict has already started to affect the economies, particularly in the global south, and in particular, again, Zimbabwe. Thank you very much for following. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'm signing out.